if you were to just for 1 second close your eyes, and if your awareness were like a spotlight, and you could shine that spotlight to the back underside of your tongue, you might notice you could salivate. Okay, done. It's all you need to know for the rest of your life. You did that. Salivation didn't download itself and then you thought, oh, I'm salivating. No, no, no. You just induced salivary activation with the spotlight of your awareness. And your body is doing that in all moments. It's listening to where your awareness goes.
Today is the best day of your life, so let your light shine, let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine.
Welcome, beloveds. Thank you for joining us for another episode of So Many Ways to Heal, as we explore resources in the realm of healing and wellness by interviewing experts in their field. I'm Daphne, and I'm really excited to be your guide as we explore ways of healing the body, the mind, and the soul to find wholeness, health, vitality, and to reveal your authentic self. Be sure to like and subscribe and turn on the bell notification so you don't miss an episode. And share this video with your soul tribe as we spread healing through the world. You can find us on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok. Remember, the best healing tools are love and gratitude. I'm sending my love and gratitude to you. Welcome everyone to another episode of So Many Ways to Heal. I'm really excited to welcome today Lisa Wimberger, who is an incredible teacher, author, presenter, and educator primarily. She has her institute called the Neurosculpting Institute, and I'm just going to let her kind of explain what it is that you do.
Oh, that's taken me like 16 years to figure out how to say it, but really teaching people how to navigate the nervous system. You know, you and I share a long history of geeking out on these kinds of topics, but really helping a person feel a sense of agency in their body, self-directed agency, so that they can move through the craziness of life in a more graceful, regulated way so they can be their best selves. And a lot of that for us at the Institute comes through teaching about basic neuroanatomy, basic nervous system anatomy, and then the bottom-up practices, so the somatic practices, and then the very specific top-down neurosculpting meditation format that really gets a person into their nervous system. So
what does that mean, bottom-up to top-down?
Yeah. Well, I like to think of everything as like a spectrum. I don't like black and white thinking. It just doesn't work for me. So if you think about your nervous system as a spectrum, and you can be fluid inside that spectrum. You can be really relaxed as one state of being, and then you can go through a state change and be really agitated, or another state change and be really shut down. This system that we move through in all moments is mechanistically housed in the brain and the central nervous system, which is the spinal column. And this mechanism inside of us gives us this capacity to move through this system. And for me, you need to know all the ways in. So you have a body, so it's one way in, so it's the bottom up. You go in through the sensory perception of the world, the eyes, the ears, the nose, the skin, the viscera, and you can then send messages to the brain to help regulate yourself. That's bottom up. And then you can go top down, which is how do I alter my thoughts, my perception, my mindset, my subconscious habituated patterns. And that can then speak to the body so that the two things in concert give us the most access into self-directed regulation. But not everyone can go in through the brain and the meditation and changing the thoughts. That's very inaccessible for a lot of people. This is why the soapbox moment of the meditation topic comes up in me. Meditation is a slippery slope, I think, because it sets people up to think that top-down regulation is the best, the only way to do it, and it's really the least accessible way, I think, even though it's my life. Bottom up, well, we all use our bodies every day in far more nuanced ways than I think we're aware of using our thought process. So to go in through the body It's really a fast way in, and so here at the Institute, we want everyone to have as many access points as possible into the central nervous system so people can feel a sense of success, regulating their body. They don't feel bound to one particular way. So many ways to heal, right? Mm-hmm. So many ways in, and it's not a one-size-fits-all, and the more information people have, the more they can take agency.
So this is a little bit like a melding between cognitive behavioral psychology therapy and like somatic experiencing type work, kind of meeting in the middle and using tools from both lines of thinking to meet. Is that right?
Yes, it is. And the meditation, the top-down meditation form that we teach, that itself also incorporates a lot of somatic awareness. So the neurosculpting meditation form is very different than other forms because we are always trying to get people aware of their soma and their experiences inside of meditation, which is the opposite of how I learned meditation. And, you know, I've been meditating for 41 years. Whoa, 41 years. And I was taught by monks, and I was taught by these teachers and those teachers, and those meditations were often really like, you're not your body. You're more than your body. Yeah, true, sure. But I have one, and I live in it, so can you help me connect to it? And so a lot of the meditation forms, particularly for me, the transcendental form, was very not body oriented, and so a dissociative person like myself doesn't need any more permission to not feel their body. I'm great at that. And so the meditation form itself brings people in dipping into the somatic experience as well, so that we're never disconnecting mind and body, which I feel is an evolution of the meditation world, is to no longer disconnect mind and body.
Mm-hmm. I really appreciate that. I've experienced that personally and within my community as well, of people that use meditation as a spiritual bypass.
Oh, I have so many things to say about that. You know, I think it's well intended. I don't think it's intended to spiritually bypass, but when you think of the nervous system, and I know you know so much about the nervous system because I've laid on your table and I've had amazing healing from your work. When you know the nervous system and you know there is a segment of our available experience and a segment of the population that defaults to the experience of freeze and dissociation, that population of people and that particular kind of stress expression absolutely needs to find its way back to the body in order for the body to regulate, because the body's already dissociating as an imbalance and a dysregulation, which means you cannot feel your feelings. You might be able to talk about feelings, but you can't feel them. You can't embody. And so people like that then further distance themselves from feeling their emotions actually can't take responsibility for their emotions. So the bypassing is not necessarily intended. It's a default product of the wrong form of meditation for that particular evolution in that particular person, in that particular stress response. And so I don't think it's a malicious thing, but I think, you know, you give candy to someone who's addicted to sugar, they're going to eat it and they're going to love it. You give a permission to not feel through meditation to a dissociative nervous system, it's going to get masterful at not feeling, and even more masterful at being able to talk about feelings as though they're not part of me. And that's the bypass. So I think they're already bypassed in their nervous system, and then we just give them permission to get comfortable there. Versus, no, you need a bridge. You need a bridge to your body. So I don't think it's ill-intended.
No. But your work is so unique in the sense that it really takes these traditional old ways of working and working with meditation, these long lineages that we know, but also you combine that with neuroscience and, you know, as we've spoken about the top down, bottom up, you know, you've really looked at how can I get into the system most effectively?
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about why your meditations are unique or
Yes.
how they work?
Well, that goes to my story, like why I needed to find a meditation form that was different than the ones I had been trained in. So when I was always predisposed to the freeze response, just my nervous system just tended to use that more than fight, flee. And when I was 15, I had a traumatic incident where I was hit by lightning in the base of the spine and started having seizures. Didn't know for many years they were seizures. I knew I was blacking out, but I didn't know what was happening during those sessions. I didn't know I was, you know, going into bradycardia. I didn't know my heart was stopping. I didn't know I was going into cyanosis and turning blue and rigid and frozen. I didn't know what was happening.
Because people weren't seeing you when you were doing it, when it happened?
Combo. A lot of times they happened when I was alone. And in the beginning, it wasn't that extreme. In the beginning, I was probably just vasovagal response, having just a bradycardia moment, but not going into full freeze, you know, not going into my heart stopping. And so I was unconscious for brief moments. But by the time I was 19, I was out for probably minutes, and then, you know, taking like 24 hours to recuperate. But I got my diagnosis on a gynecological table because I had a full grand mal seizure in a gyno exam, which, you know, by that time I had already been having seizures like for 15 years, waking up on the ground with black eyes, stuck in weird positions, like just terrible stuff, like urinating myself, defecating, vomiting, just, it's a mess. It's a big mess. But I was in this particular gyno exam, and what I now know is that you can trigger your vagus nerve through your cervix in a very aggressive pap smear situation, and you know, that's the bundle of nerves that governs the freeze response, right? So I had a very mechanically induced seizure. Thought I was going to pass out, woke up to the needle of atropine right here. Like, he had it, it wasn't even like this, like he had it in his hand, like that Pulp Fiction scene. And I opened my eyes, and I couldn't speak because I could never speak after these. And he was shaking, and he was just pasty white. And I remember him asking me, you know, has this happened to you before? And I'm just nodding my head because, yeah, this has been happening my whole life. And he said, we couldn't get your heart started. You weren't breathing. You had a grand mal seizure. You flatlined. We were going to inject atropine into your heart, which is a very powerful resuscitative for a stopped heart. And that's when he gave me my diagnosis. Well, first they checked to see if I was epileptic. I went for brain scans, and no cortical abnormalities, no epilepsy. Oh, you must be vasovagal, syncope kind of situation. I didn't know what any of those words meant. I knew that when I researched it, it was a stress disorder. And this is where the big light bulb went off. I'm like, okay, I've been meditating since I was a child. I've had no war trauma. I grew up with my loving household of parents and family. To my recollection, wasn't abused. Later, I discovered a slightly different story, but I don't have this kind of trauma. Why should I have a stress response? I'm a meditator. That was the first clue. Wrong form of meditation for my body's needs. Oh, I never healed anything in my nervous system through the kinds of meditations I had been doing for 15 years at that point. I had insight, absolutely. I had downloads, I had revelations, I had a heart opening, I had all of those things through meditation, but I did not have any capacity to heal or regulate my nervous system. And that was my first clue that the kind of meditation I had been doing was completely the wrong tool for the fix I needed. And I say fix, not that I was broken, but my nervous system was maladaptive, and I needed to make it adaptive. It had zero resilience, and I had gotten better and better and better with each seizure at less and less resilience. So I really had to start studying the brain, the central nervous system, to understand me, because these seizures were now life-threatening. A series after that event was just very traumatic for me, and then my daughter, and at the time I was a single mother, and it was just, this can't continue because I'm gonna die, and she's tiny. So I had to backwards engineer what was my meditation practice missing. It was missing all of an understanding of the nervous system. It was missing neuroscience. It was missing understanding how to induce a different brain state that would get my nervous system highly focused while also moving into a state of homeostasis. That's like the neuroplasticity combo that most meditations don't get you to. Mm-hmm. They get you to relaxation. They don't get you to high focused attention recruitment.
So it's like getting your brainwaves down to like alpha or theta level while you're maintaining focus.
While you're maintaining active prefrontal engagement.
And I imagine with trauma responses, it takes a while to actually practice it enough, because as you start going down from a trauma response, you usually check out.
Yes, exactly. So this is where the somatic awareness piece was critical in neurosculpting, is because as we're moving towards homeostasis, if we don't have high recruited attention, we may check out and then disassociate. But if we have this quieting in the midbrain, simultaneous activation in the prefrontal cortex, now we're induced. We're induced into neuroplastic enhanced playground. What do you want to entrain to with this stage set like this?
And just for the audience that doesn't know, what is the midbrain and the prefrontal cortex?
Yeah, so midbrain, the temporal lobe, is home central for our most basic needs responses. So stress response that gives rise to fight, flee, which is very midbrain. Upper brainstem is freeze. They work in concert together. When we perceive a threat, physical, emotional, mental, perceptual, imaginary, this midbrain is going to get very active, and it's going to start mobilizing us or immobilizing us towards the most protective response we can have.
That midbrain is also where the sensory cortex is.
It talks very, very intimately through the thalamus to motor cortex to sensory cortex. And so we have a sort of convergence that goes through midbrain of how we engage and locomote and sense, and then also how we process how we sense, what we sense, and how we locomote. And so there's this all roads really speak to the midbrain, and there's a really important reason for that. Our most primitive sense of survival needs to be able to have quick, parallel access to all of our sensory perception, because we want to flinch before we try to evaluate if the sharp object flying at our head is going to hurt us or not. Like, we want that pre-conscious response to danger, and that requires that midbrain to be very efficiently pre-consciously wired to audio cortex, so sensory cortex, motor cortex, visual system, everything. So this midbrain is the reason we're alive. It's a gift. It's not a curse. But it's a gift that keeps giving, even when you don't want it to. It just keeps giving more and more protective response, because it's like, protection, good, I saved you as a species. You exist now because of me. Yay. And a lot of times, it's a workaholic. It keeps working all the time, and we don't need it to. The frontal cortex, very different animal. It's not fast, it's not preconscious, it's not energy efficient, it's a hog. it's a diva when it comes to how it uses energy. It's like, oh wait, you didn't have 8 hours of sleep or your caffeine and you're not in a loving relationship? Well, no, I'm not going to be forgiving today. No, I'm going to let the midbrain judge and hate and be angry. So prefrontal cortex needs very different things. And it's also the thing that can get us so focused through this beautiful harmony of like acetylcholine and dopamine and norepinephrine to really hone in on what's important and to be fully present in it so that that becomes the truth of our reality. That's like highly recruited attention. But midbrain and front of the brain don't just both play at the same volume at the party. One talks loud and the other's like, no space for me. And the other speaks and the other one's like, I guess I need to be quiet now. They're inversely related with generally how they use blood oxygen and glucose. So that's the seesaw. So when we're in our dissociated selves, stress selves, we've got a very active midbrain and a somewhat deactivated, not shut off, but a deactivated, downregulated capacity to recruit focused attention on the things that really matter. We're just in the response. And so if we can do this with the way we use blood oxygen and glucose, by quieting midbrain and activating frontal brain, we have induced, as though it's a shoehorn escorting your foot into the beautiful new shoe so you can walk or dance or whatever, right? It's the shoehorn to escort your mind, thoughts, perception, and brain right into a receptive nervous system. And all meditation forms that I have been trained in, that's not to say all forms I have been trained in don't do anything like that. They go right to, let's relax. And do you know what happens when your midbrain is even slightly active and it's told to not do the very thing that it is designed to do? It says, that's a threat. Don't tell me what to do. I'm going to contract more. So to tell somebody, you should just relax, doesn't work. Instead, you have to invite focused attention to the things that that part of the brain needs. And you have to invite focused attention to the frontal brain and its needs, so that by way of experience, you naturally open your nervous system. And then from there, you need now to go see, what is my nervous system doing? Now that it's opened to me and it's let me in, what is it telling me? What stories is it habituated to that are not serving me anymore? And how can I shift them? And the shift is very easy and very fast and very direct when the nervous system is listening and the mind is not in a reaction, but in a more inquiry state of mind. Nervous system shifts real fast.
How do you get it to switch from action? You know, I mean, I experience a lot of people having whatever childhood they've had that kind of sets their nervous system, and they don't even realize that their nervous system is now set to stress.
Right.
Because that's just what they're used to.
Right.
They just, mom and dad fought all the time, so there's this tension in the house, and they don't realize that they're walking around with this compression because there was tension everywhere, and that's just what's normal. So they go on to be adults, and they create similar situations that have that kind of stress.
Yeah.
So how do you get somebody who's living like that in order to quiet that down?
Yeah, so in the first 5 minutes of a neurosculpting practice, we give them 2 checklists to think about. Mm-hmm. One checklist is going to naturally create a downregulation in the midbrain just by thinking about it, and that checklist is simple. It's, do you know where the bathroom is? You have access to clean water to drink? You have a bed to sleep in? Is the temperature of the room comfortable? Is your shirt soft? Is your breath breathing itself? Anything you can orient the person towards that equates to consistency, predictability, comfort, needs met. I'm not even going to say that word, SAFE. that word doesn't exist in my meditation vocabulary anymore, because it's an unattainable objective for people, because people equate that to the environment being perfect, and it's never going to be. So you want to dial down an unconscious stress contraction. You don't have to know what it is or why, but if you can focus on consistency, predictability, comfort, needs met, it will start that process. Whether you like it or not, it will start the process of your midbrain saying, my checklist is met here. I don't have to hypervigilantly look for these things. You just showed me them. Okay. So this is like a crisis intervention technique where you orient someone to your breathing. You know, sun's shining on your skin, feel that. You know exactly that there's a roof over your head protecting you from wind or rain right now. Okay, so the simple things. That midbrain starts to dial down. The person who's chronically stressed starts to move towards, maybe doesn't hit it, but moves towards homeostasis in the nervous system. So they start orienting towards a release, an expansion, and then you give the front of the brain its own checklist. You got the midbrain quiet. Now you want to really anchor it and get frontal brain excited so that it can now serve you. And that's a very bizarre technique that we use, because what we know is that the front of the brain gets super excited around novelty, wonder, awe. So we give nonsensical prompts for the meditator to think about. So the front of the brain goes, oh, wow, that's so bizarre or interesting. That's the response we want, because that's when we know we have recruited activity here, which means midbrain is also as quiet as we can get it, because we just sparked creativity and novelty here. So for instance, in a neurosculpting meditation, after you've oriented to your sense of comfort, I'm going to ask you to imagine what it would be like to lick a rainbow, or have it be, you know, the green of a rainbow as the flavor of ice cream. Or I'm going to ask you to imagine what it would be like if, you know, you walked upside down for the rest of the day. These silly statements mean nothing, but they actually mean everything to the neural activity in your prefrontal cortex, because it's busy chewing on this new unexpected thing. And in that way, in a 5-minute window, we don't have to touch the therapeutic world, because neurosculpting is not therapy, right? It's meditation. Then we don't even have to go to therapy or diagnosis or why did they do that to me, or why am I like this? We don't need to know any of that. We only need to mechanistically get your brain to shift where its resources are, so your nervous system opens without even being told to. It opens as a byproduct of a downregulated midbrain and an upregulated prefrontal. And in that way, the person who doesn't know that they're even carrying stress already starts to orient towards, wait a minute, my nervous system is starting to feel different. And a lot of times, even after the first 5 minutes, what a person can feel in a neurosculpting meditation is softening muscles, digestive gurgling, teary eyes, need to swallow more, all of the signs that the nervous system is moving towards like a rest and digest position. And so it happens like that shoe horn. You don't need to know who made the shoe, how much it cost. That's what therapy's for. Why did you spend that much money on that kind of shoe? That's therapy, and that's really important. Neurosculpting is, oh, look, there's a shoe. Would you like to smash your foot into it and feel pain all day, or would you like to just slide your foot in and, you know, tie it to just the right tension so you can walk and dance comfortably? And that's just like the first 5 minutes.
I mean, I just love it. It's so simple and brilliant.
It's simple.
You take the aspects of the brain that is just hypervigilance, that has that stress response, and you just say, look around. There's no saber-toothed tigers attacking you. There's no dinosaurs about to step on you. The tornado's not here.
Right.
You have a roof over your head. Basic needs are met. We know where everything is. And the system just automatically wants to calm down.
It wants to calm down.
And then you start exciting the frontal cortex in this way that just makes it really curious and excited
Yes.
and whimsical, and it taps into that imagination that starts opening up doors and opening
Yes.
up possibilities and windows.
Yes. And then with an excited prefrontal cortex and this induced brain state, which we call the induction, it's the first 5 minutes that induces you. Now your prefrontal cortex is like, what's next? What story can we look at? What interesting thing can we think about? And so from this point in a meditation, this is where we take someone to self-directed change. So what we do is we invite the person to imagine the thought, the pain point, the stress. They don't have to understand what it is or why. We may even call it the stress, right? It doesn't even have to have a history to it. And we do some bilateral stimulation so that they get super neuroplastically focused on their association with stress. And then we have them go into their body and scan, where does your body tell you right now where you think you hold this, and what is it doing in your body? Is it contracting? Is it hot? Is it cold? Is it a sinking feeling? Is it numb? Is it imaginary, but it has a shape or a color or a texture? Does it have a cadence we just have them through left and right brain associations really cultivate inquiry into this somatic experience, and i.e. create a relationship to it that is not stuck in it, but relating to it. And then from that place, we invite them to use their mind, their visualization process, to shift the associations they just identified. If they're associating this stress as a compression in my chest and it feels red and hot, then we imagine them turning it blue and putting it on ice, or we let the user use a lot of creative license to change the association. By changing the association, the body starts to respond. And when the body responds to your intentionally changing association, with a nervous system that's listening, the nervous system is then learning that it can do that. And so by way of creative visualization, you're actually teaching the nervous system. But it's not as simple as imagine a rainbow. You have to induce first so that the body doesn't call BS on the imagery. Like if I tell you just relax and imagine a rainbow and you're stressed, you're like, no, I'm imagining choking you instead. Okay, because your nervous system...
I got a rainbow baseball bat right here.
So your nervous system is calling BS on the authorship that you're introducing because it's not induced to buy it. This is why that 5-minute induction is critical, because then your nervous system does buy the rainbow, it does buy the floaty clouds, it does buy the observations, associations, and relationships that you are cultivating much more with a neuroplastic induction than if you don't have that induction. And because you haven't moved out of stress response without an induction, so your nervous system cannot find it comfortable enough to entertain anything else. So, so very long explanation to say, I saw what was missing from my meditation practice. I saw there was no smooth way into the nervous system. It was telling me a lot of what I should experience and what I should do, and I was in resistance to it. And finally, when I would overcome that resistance, then I would just escape and float away, and there was just zero dialogue with my sense of self-agency. It was happenstance. It was like, wow, I got a download, instead of, no, I found and created the information and association I needed. It's interesting how we use such passive language in the metaphysical world. Receive a message, got a download, visited by my guides. There's no agency there. You know, you're a side effect of something outside of you happening. And with neurosculpting, you are creating your reality. And science has shown that, and we embed the science in it. It's irrefutable. And I'll give you a perfect example right now. For anyone listening, you can try this. If you were to just for 1 second close your eyes, and if your awareness were like a spotlight, and you could shine that spotlight to the back underside of your tongue, you might notice you could salivate. Okay, done. It's all you need to know for the rest of your life. You did that. Salivation didn't download itself and then you thought, oh, I'm salivating. No. You just induced salivary activation with the spotlight of your awareness. And your body is doing that in all moments. It's listening to where your awareness goes. But you can't go there for the big stuff without a comfortable container that your nervous system is experiencing. Instead of thinking, I should feel like that, you have to let the person create the experiential, comfortable container. And then creative awareness can tell your body to do anything, and your body will be very much more receptive to trying those things. Can we spontaneously heal? Yes. Can we predict when that's going to happen through neurosculpting? No. Does everyone heal? No. Does everyone have far more agency over their nervous system than you do right now? 1,000%. So we go with those odds, right? We teach you how to get into your nervous system by way of science. Science, which is also a dirty word these days too, right? Because people expect science is the final say. No, science is our best guess based on the most amount of inquiry currently. And there's a really important value to that. Will it change? Yeah, so get over it. Science is going to change tomorrow what it said today. But is it telling you something today based on the most earnest inquiry over time? Yeah, and that's a great start. So we use neuroscience to orient us towards getting into the nervous system. And in 10 years, I'm going to tweak neurosculpting because there'll be 10 years plus of brain research that says you can get in faster this way. Great, I'll do it. Anyway, that's where I went.
I love how you really bring self on board through this process. You know, you're quieting the fight or flight stuff down, you bring on the imagination, and then self is there. And the self is the part that then discovers something that feels different from self. And then once you have that, instead of it being a mesh and I am this shadowy bit that I might be feeling, all of a sudden I am self noticing this shadowy bit, which then gives the process, the person an ability to figure out how to work with it and change it, and changing the environment from the inside instead of from the outside.
Yeah, and you know, I in my private practice, I have a lot of people that come with trauma. Even though it's not therapy, they come with a lot of trauma, and we work through it with meditation. But a lot of my practice is chronically ill and even terminal people who come for their body reason, right? They come because they have cancer, or they come because they have ALS or Parkinson's or you know, spinal cord injury or brain injury. And what we get the body to do with neurosculpting is astounding. So even when they come for just the body is responding to the way you can move into the nervous system. And you know, I've have some case studies on YouTube on my channel where I've gotten C3 partial sever, cervical spine partial sever, to move her fingers again after 13 years. And, Parkinson's case study where we took 13 different symptom metrics, and pre and post meditation, we affected 70% of those symptoms in every meditation. And we just now had a study come out, a neurosculpting study come out in the Journal of Yoga, Physical Therapy and Rehabilitation. And this study shows that 11 weeks of 1 hour a week cumulative of neurosculpting, 1 hour a week, that's not a lot, showed a decrease in anxiety, a decrease in depression, an improvement in sleep, and from pre and post meditation, improvement in resting heart rate and heart rate variability. And that's been measured. It is now in a medical journal, and it is fascinating the kind of agency we have that maybe in the long run will make us feel comfortable enough in our own bodies that we can feel those shadowy emotions. And we don't have to judge ourselves so much. And we can be imperfect humans working through our stuff and not have to spiritually bypass because it's ugly and messy and awkward. Like, this positions us to do the deeper shadow work. There's only one reason we don't do that work. It's because we don't know how to be comfortable in the body when we do it. So if we get that in place, we can do the deeper shadow work. We can try on our best selves without the fear of judgment, and then we can co-regulate, which we are sorely lacking in this world right now, is the capacity to co-regulate. We can co-dysregulate like better than anything.
Really good at that.
Really
right
good
now.
at
we
that.
are winning
Yeah.
at co-regulating.
Yes, we're winning there, and that's not a game I want to win. It's not even a game I want to play. But the game I want to play is, can we clean the house so that we can invite people in who also enjoy being in the house? And co-regulation is the ultimate goal, because we're designed to be social creatures, not just social creatures because it's nice, but social creatures because that's how we're going to survive, period. And it's interesting when I think about that. There's a very powerful but subtle difference between we and us, and it's a slippery slope. The prefrontal cortex is designed to need social engagement. It's a need. It's a survival need. And so it's constantly seeking the us, right? And in seeking the us, when it finds that and it wants to latch onto that, it then defaults to creating a them. And then that perpetuates a larger sense of disconnect. Because yes, we're an us, but there's a them. And now we have to strategize to protect. And so us is a need, and then it creates a them. But we is an invitation to expand the us into the discomfort of diversity. And we is a very prefrontal capacity. Us and them is a very midbrain driven capacity. And I think we confuse us and we a lot. And the world that we're in currently is an us and them world, which might have started from a need to find my people, which is a good thing, but then my people becomes a box and a definition. There's so many interesting studies on oxytocin, how when we find our people and we bond and we create that us, there's that rush of oxytocin which fosters trust and comfort in the nervous system. And then a little too much oxytocin in animal models that this has been studying in creates rage and aggression, i.e. bigotry and racism and the otherness that we have. And so if we temper us and look at we, I think maybe we'll start going in a different direction.
Yeah, it's kind of where we need to go collectively and interpersonally. And it seems like we're in this chapter of history where a lot of people are starting to seek out, how do I fix me? And then from me, it does become the we.
Yes.
And the we extends to not just your people in your community, but then it extends to the nature around you, the environment. Like once you start really integrating your own shadow stuff, then you really have a lot more capacity for everybody else's.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden you see the stuff that was wrong with me, oh, that's exactly what's going on with you, just a little different flavor. And I have a lot of compassion because I've been there, done that, and you just have more capacity to care at a wider and wider girth.
And a regulated, adaptable nervous system is not threatened by your different ideas. What a revelation. I'm going to say that again.
Mm-hmm.
An adaptable and resilient nervous system is not threatened by your ideas, which means I can listen and have compassion and not have to agree and still find love and we.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm going to leave it there.
Yeah. I just love that you've figured this out. I'm really amazed, actually, that your journey of, 15 years into having grand mal seizures, you realized, oh, I have grand mal seizures. And then you kind of took yourself down your own trajectory of figuring out how to hack your own brain and do it.
Yeah.
So what was what is your meditation? I've heard you talk about it before. What was your process of being able to get yourself out of, I'm going to have a seizure, into, I'm never going to have another seizure again?
Well, the first thing was, okay, so I have a habituated response to stress that is so subconscious that my nervous system chooses that habituated response, and that habituated response happens to be, I have a seizure, right? So the first thing I did was I looked at my seizure as not something wrong with me, but as a habituated response that had been rehearsed, and I got real good at it.
Mm-hmm.
So I started viewing it like that.
So it's, again, you automatically started creating a separation, a self, and then this thing.
Yeah.
And that could be brought to anybody if they get flashed with anger real easy.
Right.
Or they have a freeze response when they come into difficult conversations.
Right.
Your personal situation showed up as, I have a seizure.
Right. And I said, okay, so here is a very well-rehearsed response in my nervous system. I don't know why, don't know where it came from, but it's there, and it is pre-conscious because I'm not in control of it. So there is a response in my nervous system. So what if I could go into my nervous system and sort of open the folder where this instruction blueprint lives, and see how I relate to it when I'm comfortable, and see how big it is, what size it is, where I think it lives in my nervous system, and what if I could convince my nervous system that I am shifting and adapting the blueprint. So I viewed it like that. So I made it an object, right? So I did my induction, calmed my midbrain, activated my frontal brain, and then went into the body of the meditation, which is, what if I could assign a word to describe this seizure response? What if I could assign it colors, textures, vibrations? That's actually the bilateral stimulation. And what if I could go imagine, discover, or feel where I perceive this blueprint lives? Of course, this is all fantastical narrative mind. So I find where I think it lives, and I am relating to it. And then I find that I relate to it in a way that it feels spiky and just buzzy in my head. And so I imagined, turning a volume dial down, and so the buzz gets quieter, and filing down the spiky edges so the spikes get smaller. So I'm imagining relating to it differently. And then I would rehearse in meditation. This is what a seizure halo feels like. I usually have 1 second between a seizure halo and I'm out. So in that, I'm going to pretend like I'm going to have a seizure in meditation. And now I'm going to rehearse kicking, punching, biting, screaming, yelling. I was just rehearsing the opposite of seize. I didn't even care if it was like the right response. I need to rehearse while my nervous system is listening. I need to bring my awareness to the back of my tongue and salivate, right? I need to bring my awareness to the remembered response and change it. So I'm rehearsing this new script, and I'm doing this over and over and over again every meditation, from the last seizure I had to the point in time which another one was about to hit. I never knew when they were coming. So it turns out I took this format, I played with it, used it for about 7 months between my worst seizure ever, where I could no longer breathe on my own, to the next one I know is going to kill me, so I'm going to rehearse this script. And that time span was about 7 months, 8 months. And then I did get a seizure halo, at that 8-month mark, and I thought I was going to die. And this script I had been neuroplastically in training to in meditation kicked in on autopilot. And instead of the seize response, this rehearsal script kicked up subconsciously. And I kicked, screamed, bit, punched exactly as I had done in rehearsal, outside of my conscious choice, like, oh my God, this was happening. And it was awkward and terrible, and I looked like a banshee, and it was crazy. But
were you alone?
No, I was with my boyfriend, my husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, and he was mortified, but he there was no stopping me. It was just happening, but I didn't seize. And I went into neurogenic tremors for like 8 hours. He took me home. I couldn't really speak. I said, put me in a dark room. And I was in a dark room for hours and hours, just like that, uncontrollably. And when I was done with all the neurogenic tremoring, my whole nervous system felt entirely different. Like I knew in my bones and my cells, I did it. I broke the habituated seizure response with an implanted, rehearsed script that I had rehearsed for 8 months. I can do anything. Seizures were gone. I knew it. Never had another one again. I've had seizure halos, but my body just goes, you don't do that. Little twitch, they're gone. And that's when I knew the human body could do anything. That's when I knew I could change my mindset for real, not hoping I could, knew I could. I could change my beliefs. I could change the trauma that made me who I was. I could change my relationship to guilt and shame, and I could take responsibility and have it be ugly and messy and be okay. And everything changed when I realized that. And so that was the process, was rehearsal scripts. And now my meditation process is, if I don't meditate every day, I'm not my best self. And if I skip a couple days, I'm my old school self. And she's still there. But I've created enough entrainment scripts where there's a natural balance and a natural resilience and adaptability. And so I just try to meditate every single day.
I can relate. I love my old self. She was great. But there's a lot of responding to old trauma. You're just in a trauma response because it's a programming that was put in before you had the ability to really have autonomy and independence and sovereignty over the choices you want to make and how you want to show up, right?
Absolutely.
That's an amazing story.
Yeah.
That's a really amazing story.
Yeah, I tell it sometimes, and it's now so far in the past that I'm like, who was that? Like, that happened to me? That's bizarre.
Can you speak a little bit more about what that neurotremor response was?
Yeah. So Bessel van der Kolk wrote The Body Keeps the Score. He's at the forefront of,
required reading.
Yes.
If anybody hasn't read it yet.
Yeah,
required reading.
The muscle contractions that we have in our body are self-protection contractions, and they create their own patterning, right? And the more we have stress, unmitigated, unresolved, compounded, the more we're going to have habituated muscle contraction. It's why so many of us have tension headaches or TMJ or our posture. The muscles, this is your area of expertise, the organs, the muscles, the viscera, the fascia, all respond to the internal state of well-being, and then perpetuate that into physical form, and then we shape ourselves into that. So the muscles have this contraction response. And when stress is really big and the muscles are contracting more and more, and there's this like lactic acid buildup, or there's this complete fatigue happening, the only way for the muscles to release those contractions is to start to tremor out the energy until they're soft. Your dog, hearing fireworks, is going to go tremble. The trembling is not fear. The trembling is the regulation response to fear. And it's the muscles of the animal dissipating the adrenaline contractions so that they can go back to soft, because soft muscles communicate through the peripheral nervous system back to the central nervous system that says, we're okay now. Soft muscles equals I'm okay, my needs are met. I ate a big dinner. Oh, I'm okay, right? Animals in the wild, what are they doing after they eat? They're lounging around and they're just like blissed out, right? So soft muscles, this is why massages feel so good. A jacuzzi feels amazing because it's a mechanical induction of that muscle softening process. But the nervous system does this on its own through tremors. And when you've got locked trauma and stress, that finally unlocks, you get really twitchy like that. Mm-hmm. And let it happen. Just let it happen. Because your muscles are trying to regulate you, but instead we try to clamp down on it. You know, oh, I had a fender bender. And you're talking to the cop like this, right? Because you're doing the accident report, and they're like, try to hold you and well, cops don't try to hold you, but your friend who's there with you is like, calm down, or they, you know, try to put a blanket around you because you're shivering, or they try to like control the tremors. Don't. You're trying to interrupt your regulation response. And so I had a lifetime of patterned freeze paralysis response, and it was all now coming out, and my whole body was just in this vibration space. And it was really scary because I knew nothing about neurogenic tremors at the time, but I also knew it was too big for me to stop. Mm-hmm. And I'm so grateful I didn't stop it because I felt reset. Mm-hmm. And that's what the tremoring can do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wanted you to speak to it because, I mean, I see on my table, clients don't know what's happening, and they get a little scared when their system just starts having the shakes. I mean, usually by the time they're in it, they're just already willing to be in it. Mm-hmm. Peter Levine, I think, was the first person that I read,
Waking the Tiger,
where he really talked about why does a gazelle not have post-traumatic stress disorder after a cheetah tries to chase it, right? And, well, once they're safe, they go and they tremor. And, you know, humans and domesticated animals are the only ones that don't do that, and we're the only ones with post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah, we've forgotten that the nervous system knows what to do. We don't trust ourselves. And because we don't trust our own nervous system and our own sense of agency, that's why we don't trust other people. That's my little philosophy. So the more we learn to trust our sense of agency and autonomy and choice, it doesn't start with, you made me not trust you. It doesn't start with, you're lying to me. It starts with, oh, I don't know where that feeling even is in my own nervous system. If I can orient to that first, not only can I spontaneously heal a ton, but again, it goes back to, I don't have to trust you. I can let you have your opinion and your thoughts and your lifestyle, and it doesn't hurt me to let you have your life, your way, your experience, as long as it's not physically harmful to the people around you. I have equanimity, and I feel like it's that trust factor. We don't trust the resilience of our own nervous system because we're disconnected from it, because we stop the tremors and we're civilized.
Which is where the concept of trauma as this bad thing, any kind of trauma can actually be a keyhole into the freedom that we're really wanting. Like, it's our nervous system's response, even if somebody did something terrible to us pointing our finger at them doesn't actually further anything. But if you take that opportunity to say, I did get screwed over, but let me look at my response to it.
Right.
Because that's what I can work on.
Absolutely.
It becomes this key into being able to really let things go and re-regulate your nervous system.
Yeah, I feel like the idea of letting anything go first happens with you learning how to speak to your nervous system and learning how to trust it, because it has survived by not letting it go. And so you can't ask it to get rid of something that it has used as a survival mechanism until you have taught it the experience of trust. And there's my favorite quote from an old book I read probably in my 20s. I think it's from Rian Milan. Trusting is dangerous, but without trust there is no hope for love, and love is all we ever have to hold against the dark. And that starts, I did not trust my own body. I didn't trust it so much that I didn't even want to be in it. That's how dissociated I was.
Lisa, this has been awesome.
So good talking to you.
I feel like we could go on for hours. Maybe we should set up another one
Yeah.
and just keep going because it just spawns so many questions.
Yeah.
You're an author. Do you want to share your books
Sure.
that you've written?
Yeah. There's 4 on Audible, which are not these. So there's a lot out there. So there's New Beliefs, New Brain, which was the first one, and it gives a really great, simple overview of basic neuroanatomy and how our belief systems work in our body. And then there is Neurosculpting, which really positions the ideas around how you can work with trauma without it being a therapeutic kind of approach. And then this one is probably my favorite. The Monster Under Your Bed is just a story in your head. And it's to give children neuroliteracy and agency over their own fear response. And if we start...
I have that one for I read with my son.
Yeah, I mean, if we start them young, understanding that they govern this and they create reality from the inside out, then I don't know, maybe the future will be something really, really amazing.
So you have an institute and you teach classes, and you're teaching people how to do this for themselves and then also train people how to do this with others. Is that right?
Absolutely. So we have amazing online courses to get you really user-friendly with this process. You can change your life completely without needing me or anybody externally forever. I mean, it's nice to have, but this is self-directed neuroplasticity. And then from there, people who really find the change inside themselves, they start to want to share this, and we have a certification program for that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I will post all of the links to her YouTube channel and her website down below, so you can check out Lisa's work and the Neurosculpting Institute.
Yeah. It's so good to talk to you.
So good to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing. You're such a gifted person and so eloquent and easy in it. You talk about the science in ways that I think can be really attainable to people. It's not this scary thing, you know. You make it very relatable. So
I hope.
I'm really happy we did this.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, beloveds, for joining us for another episode of So Many Ways to Heal, where we explore ways of healing the body, mind, and soul to find wholeness, health, vitality, and to reveal your authentic self. If this content resonates with you, be sure to give it a like and subscribe, and share this video with your loved ones. Speaking of your loved ones, if you know of an amazing healer, teacher, or facilitator that would be a good fit for the show, or you know someone who has an amazing story of healing that will help inspire others, please connect us. You can find my email below, along with the links to YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. We know the best healing tool is love and gratitude, so I'm sending my love and gratitude to you.
Blessed we are the way showers of the light. We birth a new earth for a new timeline. We are all divine on the inside, so let your light shine. Live your blessings out like it was the best day of your life. Today is the best day of your life, so let your light shine, let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine.